talking all things upsets. Playoffs are right here. And just to get y'all in the mood, the spirit of the season, we're talking about the greatest underdog performances in playoff history. Who doesn't like rooting for the underdogs? David versus Goliath and coming out on top. 2007, we're going to take y'all back to 1 seed Dallas Mavericks, 67-win season, 28-year-old prime Dirk coming off his 6th straight All-Star nod and his first MVP. That juggernaut was hosting the 8th seed, we believe, Golden State Warriors.
And as everybody knows, man, that's one of the most famous series, should I say infamous series, in both of those franchises' history, right, man? We talk about that series, and that was a movie waiting to happen. I mean, you had this Dallas team that they were tough all season. They were the team to beat, best record in the Western Conference, the first seed. And like you mentioned, you had this ragtag bunch of guys who were fringe all-stars, maybe didn't live up their potential, a bunch of guys who had problems off of the floor, and they were able to put it together and upset, again, one of the most winningest teams in regular season history.
That Warriors team, they weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs. It took a 16-5 finish to even get them above 500 as that 8th seed into the playoffs. And then you're looking at the Mavericks coming in as heavy favorites. There was no answer for Dirk at that time. He was getting it on that low block. It's 2 points, cash money. But while the Warriors didn't match with the Mavs on top end talent, they did make up for that shortcoming by playing some dogs, okay?
Yes,
you mentioned
sir.
how iconic this team became. All the Smoke podcast. It was started here because I'm going to read off some of these names and you'll be like, damn, I thought those guys were just podcasters. But it was Monte Ellis, Baron Davis in the backcourt. And then, like we said, the All the Smoke first team, Steven Stack Johnson, Matt Barnes, Al Harrington, Josh Richardson. We got to believe, bro, this was a true team. 6 guys averaging 15 plus. One of the most dynamic backcourts. We had Baron Davis, who was just a beast playing bully ball. And then Monte out there, one of the best point guards to never make an all-star team. And it was all pulled together by Don Nelson, head coach of the Warriors and former head coach of Dallas, who I think gave him a little inside edge there. The blueprint on how to beat his former team, because what they did with Dirk was completely different than the rest of the league was doing with them. 6'11", Euro-style basketball. NBA doesn't really know how to handle it. He's having his way. But what Don Nelson and the Warriors did was throw guards and forwards at him, try to really get under him, make it hard for the catch. It was really our first glimpse of small ball.
And this is one of the most exciting moments in the pre-Steph Curry era. This team was full of them dogs, you know what I'm saying? Monte Ellis, who you mentioned, I mean, averaging over 20 for the majority of the first half of his career. Then you look at guys like Baron Davis, man. I mean, he might not make the Hall, right, but his game was sweet. Matt Barnes, Stack, Steven Jackson, one of my favorite nicknames, by the way. But yeah, no, this team was fun. They were entertaining. They got up and down the floor. And like you said, right, they didn't match up with the Dallas Mavericks in terms of top-end talent. They didn't match up with them on the defensive end. I mean, they couldn't stop Dirk, right? But what they did was they went toe-to-toe on the offensive end every single night, and they brought us one of the best upsets in NBA playoff history. Whenever you got an 8th seed beating a 1 seed, it's something you got to tip your hat to them.
Yeah, bro, it had a Phoenix feel to it. The way they ran the offense, the way they got up and down. They empowered those point guards. They really had 2 point guards in Monte and Baron Davis, and Don Nelson just let them go. They were flying up and down the court, and it worked.
Next up on this list, man, this is probably one of the rare times that you're ever going to see the Spurs on this side of an upset list. I mean, when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs, you think of class, great coaching, winning basketball. You know, the year's 2011 playoffs are coming in. This NBA playoff season, I'm getting hype. You know, scholastic basketball season just ended. I'm ready to watch Tim Duncan do work in the playoffs. And if there's one thing about the San Antonio Spurs, there's not one person on the team who's going to get 30 a night. But damn, it's going to be some fun basketball to watch. And they found themselves matched up against the 2011 Memphis Grizzlies. This team was the first year of a team that was one of the most important in this franchise's history. The lowly Memphis Grizzlies, man, they barely snuck their way into the playoffs. They had a young Mike Conley. They had a Zach Randolph. We have Mark.
It's not your average 8 seed. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I think to this Grizzlies team, because you're looking up and down this roster and like 8th in the West, how did that happen? When you look at the Spurs, right, coming off another 60-win season, cream of the crop, right? We got oodles of respect for these guys at this point. We're already a couple chips in. Tony Parker, Manu already established, Tim Duncan already in the Hall of Fame if he retires at this point. The advantage for every Pop-led year was the front court. If it wasn't the Admiral, it was Tim. If it wasn't Tim, it was Boris Diaw. Somehow I'm figuring it out. But it was always an advantage in every series. This was the exception. Z-Bo had just stepped into his own. I know Tim Duncan was still good. It was 16-10, but Z-Bo was the premier guy at that point on the low block. And then you had Marcus Hall next to him. He's putting it together. He was about to win a depoy. Boy was nice, okay? He's not the slow-footed guy you remember from Toronto a couple years back. This was a completely different guy. You had young Mike Conley outclassing Tony Parker. That wasn't supposed to happen. You had, like we said, Z-Bo outplaying Tim Duncan. That wasn't supposed to happen. And then off the bench, OJ Mayo getting buckets off the bench.
Come on.
Tony Allen looking like an apex predator, doing Dennis Rodman type of stuff, just going on a hunt. He's not even playing basketball. He's playing a different sport. They took it to him, man. They took it to him.
Yeah, you mentioned one of my favorite players of the series, OJ Mayo. One of the last times you saw him in a Memphis Grizzlies jersey. There was times where he showed the flash of why he was the best high school player in the country, why he thought he had the gall to challenge Michael Jordan one-on-one in a camp. You always love to see the underdog win. This was a series for the decade. Arguably one of the best Spurs teams to never make it past the first round. I mean, 61 wins?
Probably.
That is a really deep squad. That's a team that won a lot of regular season basketball. And you look at the way it played out, you got to tip your hat to the Grizzlies even more, man. Lionel Hollins in that group. You know, Lionel Hollins, a veteran coach. Took him to 46-36 finish. I mean, nothing too crazy, but that was just a super deep Western Conference that year.
All right, moving on. I know you're excited to get into this one, bro. 2016. What a time. Bleacher Report had this, I think it's the second best finals in the last 2 decades. And we know why. All right, almost 10 years after the We Believe Warriors gave the NBA a taste of small ball, this 2016 Dub squad came along and perfected it. Okay, the most dominant regular season team in NBA history. You know how many wins, I don't gotta tell you. So dominant that they entered a final series against the best player in the world, LeBron James, as massive favorites. And this is not KD Golden State. This is Steph, Clay, Dre Golden State. But we know what happens. Draymond gets a little excited with that right foot. Cavs get a stimulus package from the NBA commissioner's office. And then we have the iconic Game 5. Kyrie and LeBron go and do something that's never been done. Never on the final stage have 2 players on the same team scored 40 points a person. And this was win or go home. This was backs against the wall. And they coming out like that swinging. A masterclass in the time they needed it most.
This is one of those games that everybody asks or everybody tries to remember, right? Where were you when this game happened? Where were you when this series played out, man? Like you mentioned, top 2 NBA finals of all time. They're saying in the last 2 decades, I'm saying arguably of all time. It's up there. This Golden State Warriors team was just absolutely beating the brakes off people. I mean, this is the 73-9 squad. This is the squad that had the best record of all time. Everyone's talking about they're better than the 72-10 Chicago Bulls. And we were all sold. I mean, they went into the series quick 3-1 lead. Those first 4 games outside of the one the Cavs won, I mean, it's not very memorable. It's just Warriors doing what they do at an efficient rate and picking apart the Cleveland Cavaliers. You mentioned it, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving threw on the backpack. We're gonna put the team on our back, man. And then they showed up and they showed out. I mean, they got more than a stimulus package from the NBA, bro. They got, I love that line, by the way. They got like an IV, steroided up. Like it was an adrenaline rush to the heart. I mean, Draymond Green was the heart and soul of that squad. And you see how valuable he is, maybe not on the stat sheet, but just in the impact of winning games. And it showed right there. Nonetheless, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving did the unthinkable. Kyrie Irving hits the shot, one of the most iconic jumpers of all time. Yeah. They end up putting it away, coming back to win this series 4-3.
Crazy upset. A couple things that y'all might have forgotten about. One, once that stimulus package is handed out, you got to take advantage, and LeBron and Kyrie did that to the utmost in games 5 and 6. Then it was a Tristan Thompson game in there, game 6, where he goes 15 and 16, gets every offensive board, creating second chances on every other time down the court. And then it was actually a really team effort, I think, in game 7. Obviously, Kyrie hit the shot. Obviously, LeBron had the block, but it was K-Love getting the defensive stops. It was RJ getting the big steal. A real team win there. That was the most recent on our list of upsets, but man, that just elicits some memories. I know y'all seeing the highlights. Listen, let's talk about it. Probably feel the same way.
Speaking of series that you're going to remember where you were at, this is arguably, man, one of the biggest upsets in NBA history, NBA playoff histories, and NBA finals history. The 2011 Dallas Mavericks against the 2011 Miami Heat, nicknamed the Heatles, the Big Three. This is LeBron, D-Wade, Chris Bosh, first year in South Beach. This is right after the proclamation. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. They looked like there were issues on this Miami Heat team. They weren't gelling as teams on the back end of the 4-year span. But you said said, man, this team has got enough to do it. You got an old bunch of Dallas Mavericks. They're looking sorry. I mean, guys like Dirk Nowitzki, Jason Kidd, Jason Terry, guys that you love. But you're like, these guys ain't winning no championship. It's over for them. You wrote them off before the series even started.
I think the Heatles really just ran into a team perfectly designed to exploit their weaknesses. And that's what we saw with a miniature guard and JJ Barea just coming in and knocking down clutch shots whenever needed. That's what we saw with an experienced wing defender like Sean Marion limited the King to under 19 points. A Hall of Famer running the ship and J Kidd, Next Factor and Jason Terry, and Dirk Nowitzki putting up 28 and 8 a night, hitting contested jumper after contested jumper, one leg, two leg, it's not mattering. Free throws, he's hitting every one of them. You know, I think he went 30 in a row, 40 in a row. He went on a playoff streak without missing a free throw.
Yep.
My man was in a groove. He was locked in. One thing on his mind, getting Mark Cuban a ring.
Yeah, dude, but I'll tell you what, man. The guy for me that was really a difference maker in this series, I mean, you know the Jason Kidds, you know the Tyson Chandlers, you know the Dirk Nowitzki's, the main cogs of the team. But Jason Terry, man, the Jet, bro, he was going off that series, averaged 18 for the series. Now as a second option, was playing great defense against LeBron. I mean, people were talking, like, I know I sound crazy here. It's like that Max Kellerman comment.
Of everyone on Golden State, open shot, or the Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth, you better hit it. I want Iguodala.
After that playoffs, people were like, yeah, I'm taking Jason Terry all day. You know, I know I'm getting hyped up, but you remember that time?
Yeah, I remember what it was like for LeBron in the following 30 days. That was rough because this is a collapse. I just told y'all, 18 points in the finals?
Yeah, that's actually crazy.
I mean, Skip Bayless had a field day. It's funny, though, because at that point, like you mentioned, it's 2011. LeBron's not him. He's not the guy yet. That no clutch gene talk was at its height. And that performance did him no favors. As leader of the not one, not two, not three Miami Heat, he served as face of that collapse. So you listen to some of these quotes that followed that series. Bleacher Report said this: if there's one thing we've learned about LeBron in his last few seasons in the league, it's that when clutch time arrives, he can't be counted on. Skip Bayless said this: the chosen one has become the frozen one. That was probably the first time. We've heard that at least 35 times since.
Yeah.
And then someone else saying this: LeBron is just LeBron, not what ESPN tries to make him seem. So you can see heavy is the head that wears the crown, and that was definitely the case in 2011. LeBron was facing all types of heat, no pun intended. Critics were coming for his neck. Glad to see he responded next year. But for that year, it was Dirk's time to shine, bro. An amazing run. Honestly, the only one that compares in terms of doing it with little help is probably Kawhi in Toronto. But since 2000, that may have been the most impressive championship one.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what the difference between the Kawhi chip and this one is, like, that Warrior team was absolutely decimated by injuries. This Mavericks team played a full force prime LeBron, prime D Wade, and back end of the prime Chris Bosh. These guys faced them at full health, and then you look at the options around them between the Shane Battiers, the Mike Millers, the Mario Chalmers. They had guys around them, but I agree with you. The Kawhi chip was a tough one, but again, this one was the Mavs went out and won it. I think the Raptors got a little lucky, you know?
Yeah, you're right. I can't disagree with that. All right, y'all. That's going to do it before we get out of there. We just want to ask you guys to show a quick like, subscribe if you're feeling so gracious. For us, let them know where we put that flavor.
Another episode of the Hoop Plug, and as always, put some flavor in your ear.